City Council meeting for October 12th, 2015, and I apologize, it is now 6:09 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Don Williams and Councilors Chester Noriakis.
Here.
Wes Ryan, he's excused. Roger Sprague.
Here.
Susan Walke.
Here.
And Kip Ward.
Here. We all please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Right into the consent agenda. The calendar consists of items of a repeat or routine nature considered under a single action. A councilor may remove a consent agenda item for separate consideration upon request. One, we have the minutes of meetings of June 22nd, 2015, and we have the OLCC new outlet application, Highway 101 burger.
Mayor Williams, on the OLCC application, that's not quite ready yet, so that's a request to have it continue to the 26th.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second?
Second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Or motion carries, I'm sorry. All right, presentations. We go to C.C. Pratt, My Sister's Place. Will speak on Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to address you in the governing body here in Lincoln City, as well as the citizens, to talk about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. My name is C.C. Pratt. I am the outreach coordinator with My Sister's Place. My Sister's Place is the domestic violence nonprofit organization here in the county. We have one shelter that serves the whole county, and we have an advocacy office in Newport, again, that serves the whole county. We have been here for 35 years, and I have presented a packet for you to explain a little bit more about My Sister's Place, as well as the campaign for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This month is Healthy Hearts. Healthy Hearts is a great campaign that the Oregon Coalition put together because it helps us understand a little bit more about domestic violence and the effects that it has. We do know that domestic violence is an epidemic that affects many families here in Oregon and in Lincoln County, but also we know that it affects the individual in different ways and can manifest into health problems. So, for instance, someone experienced domestic violence has an 80% more chance to experience a stroke, or 70% more of a chance to experience heart disease, 60% more chance to also experience asthma. And knowing this, we can see its effects a little bit better outwardly and have that opportunity to open a discussion about domestic violence and even how that then would then also talk about health costs and whatnot. I did include some current statistics, but one that I did not have the opportunity to, at the time when we were preparing the packets, include was that we do now know that in Lincoln City, from January 1st to August 31st, Lincoln City alone had 57 clients that came to us within those months, and that excludes 4 months from the year, and 57 is a great number. We, like I said, have been servicing the county since for 35 years, and we hope to continue. And with your support, and which has been great, thank you so much. But we do hope that our numbers decrease instead of continue to increase. So with that, I'll take any questions.
I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
We're so grateful you're here, and we're so sorry you're here.
Here, here.
Well, I would like the opportunity to invite you to participate in some of our activities that we're having this month, especially the silent stand, which will be this week on Wednesday, October 14th, on the corners of Highway 101 and East Devils Lake Road. If you do have any questions in the future, feel free to contact our office. We would be happy to give you a tour individually of our shelter or our advocacy office to learn more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we move to Certificate of Appreciation for Councilor Jim Davis. I'm assuming someone's bringing me something. What's that?
I said I do not have the certificate.
You do not have a certificate. All right. Thanks, Jim. Well, get you something. It's in the mail. We certainly appreciated Jim's service here on the council and as a planning commissioner also. He brought a really great perspective. I can speak from experience that when we had discussions about construction and building, he filled a great need that I didn't have the experience in, and it was always nice to be able to turn to him for that. So thank you, Jim, and sorry we've lost you. Now we come to comments from citizens present on agenda and non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to bring to the council's attention any item not listed on the agenda for public hearing or public comment. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per citizen, and the city recorder will use the light system. Speakers may not yield their times to others, and as a general rule, this is not a time for exchange of questions. At the conclusion of this agenda item, a councilor may discuss or raise questions regarding an item presented by a citizen. The mayor has the authority to reduce the time allowed for comment in accordance with the number of persons present and signed up to speak. We have a lot of people, but not a lot signed up, so I think we're good to go. When you approach the mic, please just sit down, say your name. You don't have to give us your address. Pastor Robert Harrison. But if you do want to follow up, you do need to give the city recorder your address or at least have it on this sheet.
My name is Pastor Robert Harrison. I pastor Agape Fellowship. I have pastored at that church for approximately 28 years, pushing on 30. I've been living in Lincoln City since 1965. I'm a graduate of Taft High School. I am a Vietnam vet. I almost lost my life in Vietnam. I was blowing up. And what I'm here for is first off to thank the city council and the mayor for the work that you do as you serve our community. And I know it's not an easy job. It's easy to say this needs to be done and this needs to be done, but walk a mile in my shoes. I know what you people go through. But I have a great concern for some of the people that you serve in our community, which is of the religious standard. And I'm not promoting any faith, but I do have a real problem with not having an invocation at the city council meeting. To invoke is to ask for a higher authority to help us. Now, we all know that there's a tsunami coming someday. And I know when that happens, people are going to cry out for help. And they're going to need help. And so not to take 5 minutes of the service for the city council to make decisions when a big share of our town want God's blessing. Not to ask for it, to me, doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to take 5 minutes and ask for God's blessing on the decisions that you people have to make, because we don't know what lies ahead. I don't know what lies ahead. But I have learned a few things in my life, and I can tell you this with real assurance. In foxholes, there are no atheists. And so when we need God's help, I don't want God to say, you didn't want my help. You kicked me out the door. Well, I would ask the city council and the mayor to reconsider reinstating the invocation and getting it out to the ministers of our town. And there's many, many religious people in our town. And I think they would appreciate it when they bring things before you, knowing that it's being held up to God. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joseph West.
Go ahead.
Please do. Just
Awesome.
give us your name and
Awesome. My name is Joseph West. I'm the council representative for the majority of the AFSCME members who work here for the city. Those are the folks who do the day-to-day work to keep the city operating, whether it's out in the streets, here in the Visitors Bureau, or throughout the city, making sure the place operates. The reason I'm here today is at the request of our membership, and it's to bring to the city council's attention that our members feel that bargaining is taking excessively long and it's underproductive. It's taken longer than it has in several bargaining cycles, and the concern of our members is that they're aware that the city's doing very well. They know the city's budget has increased by over $7 million during the past 2 years. They're also aware that you're offering our members 1% raise during that time period, and are proposing to significantly increase the out-of-pocket max for their health insurance. They're all standing or sitting behind me now to show you that our bargaining team can't recommend this as a deal to them. It's not a deal they're willing to accept. We've been asked to go to a mediator several times. We want to bargain in good faith with the city like we have in years past. So our question to you is, can you talk to your attorney? Can we get back to the table and reach a deal here shortly? Yep.
okay. And did you?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Rick. He's our president. He's sitting alongside me as well.
Were you going to add anything, Rick?
No, Joe was going to be our spokesman today.
Rick's got the background on it. He's been the president here for over a decade. And he's the one who's really provided me the background information. So our request really is that we get back to the table, we reach a fair deal, because right now we're not at a place that we can do that.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Will we be hearing back from you? You guys know where to contact me. Sensing a yes?
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Miles Schlesinger. Take your time. You need a hand, Miles? You all right?
Yep.
All right.
I want to congratulate the council on the decision
If I could ask you to hold it down while you leave, please. Thank you so much.
to hire Ed Drystad as Visitors and Convention Bureau manager. I think he knows the hospitality industry, and he's got personality, and he's got a plan to attract people to Lincoln City. And as Kip Ward knows, I'm deeply interested in Devil's Lake because Devil's Lake can provide additional income during the off-season by having events if the water is clean and not so infiltrated with blue-green algae of the type that's toxic. And Devil's Lake could be used and cleaned up, and the Devil's Lake Water Improvement District is planning on aeration and have taken most of the things in my suggestions to them over the last 2 years. And I'm interested in providing the city and with some hospitality industry experience, having been in the motel and restaurant business in 4 western states for the majority of my career until I became a green builder in 2001 and suffered through the horrible recession of 2008. But regardless, I retired down here, and having nothing better to do, would like to be able to promote that. And I asked the city manager at the chamber meeting last week, what are you doing about the sewer system on East Devil's Lake Road? And his only answer was that it's very expensive, and he didn't know precisely what you were going to do. So I'd like to encourage you to do that, and that is one of the reasons I came tonight. This is the first city council meeting I've attended, but I've been a resident and property owner for 26 years here.
Well, welcome. Don't be a stranger.
Okay.
Could you state your full name, please, for the record?
Miles Schlesinger, S-C-H.
Into the mic there.
S as in Sam, C-H-L-E-S-I-N-G-E-R.
Thank you.
Miles.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Miles.
Thanks, Miles.
All right, Cindy Thompson and Joe Hinton.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Cindy Thompson, and Joe Hinton is with me tonight. I am one of the co-presidents of the REIA Association.
Could you extract that for us?
Roads End Improvement Association.
Thank you.
Okay. On your agenda later tonight, you will be considering what we hope will be the first step in the final part of Roads End's journey to full integration with Lincoln City. In a city-sponsored Siegel study of the proposed annexation published in July 2011, it was suggested that Roads End would well be served by a custom zone tailored for the area. The city is now managing our neighborhood with a sometimes confusing mix of county and city zoning, regulations, and licensing. And we believe a new R1 RE zone will remove much of the uncertainty that could affect home sales and purchases, and simplified zoning direction for the city and property owners alike. Even before the annexation settlement agreement was signed, the Roads End Improvement Association began working with neighbors and city staff to develop a zone that would meet the needs and desires of the area and the city. We have held open brainstorming sessions with neighbors and property owners, formed a special committee to compare the details of the county's R1A zone and the city's R1 zones, and consulted with city staff to find out what was legal and practical. We have refined those ideas in consultation with the neighborhood. In May of this year, REIA put the results to a vote of our membership with overwhelming support of the recommendations. Using the language of the annexation settlement agreements as our guide, we now begin the process of bringing our recommendations to you and requesting the rezoning of Rhodes Inn. REIA is a small, volunteer-run nonprofit with limited resources. We hope the City Council will support our request and help us through this process to finally complete the integration of Rhodes Inn into the City of Lincoln City. We understand that there are several options available to City Council, which will be explained later to you. We recommend the Council initiate the rezoning process as authorized by the settlement agreement. I apologize, I am suffering from some kind of Lincoln City crud right now, and my voice kind of is wavering.
It was very clear. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Your letter requests a zoning change, but it doesn't say what the zone would be. What zoning are you seeking?
What we will be seeking will be laid out in the process with the planning. What we're calling it the R1 RE zone.
It's kind of a blend of city R1 and the pre-existing county R1A zone.
Okay.
Tried to pick what we thought was the best of both and have a zone that's specially suited to our neighborhood.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Later.
Okay. Thank you.
Much. Thank you. John Force.
Kind of fast to get through all that I have here, so sorry.
Give us your name up front.
I'm John Force. I live at 1820 Northeast West Devils Lake Road, Lincoln City. I pioneered Nelscott Reef personally 15 years ago when no local surfer would go out. I lured pros here from Santa Cruz to help me ride the reef and have them show that we have a world-class big wave in our own backyard. A couple years later, I founded the Nelscott Reef Big Wave Classic, drawing the best big wave surfers from around the world, and helped finance it myself with the help from Liquid Militia Clothing, the Oregon Sports Authority, and the casino. The contest was a raving success, and Nelscott Lincoln City got worldwide publicity in the New York Times, front page of the Oregonian, a Russian sports magazine, ESPN, Comcast, Fox Sports, Northwest PDX magazine, Outside magazine, Stand-Up Journal, Surfer magazine, and the list goes on. The documentary I helped finance, along with the Oregon Sports Authority, The Find, claiming Nelscott Reef, has played in domestic and foreign film festivals around the world. I was invited to introduce the film at the San Sebastian Film Festival in Spain 2 years ago. We played to sold-out theaters, the Baghdad and the Hollywood in Portland, and we left a line of over 200 in the streets. We have been the first in many areas of competition, the first to have a women's heat and the first to have a Kingfish champion. We joined the Big Wave World Tour 4 years ago when it was a fledgling entity, and helped build the event once again with my own money and efforts, always with the promise that better times were coming from the founder of the tour. We endured until a couple of years ago when the Big Wave World Tour was bought by the World Surf League, and the promises of more prosperous time were ahead. $50,000 purses, webcasts, and Gary Linden, the president of the Big Wave Tour, that the financial burden would be taken from me. I made financial decisions based on those promises. This never happened, and in fact, I quit the tour when Gary asked that I sign a contract to carry the financial burden of running the contest here, insurance, pay for the safety crew, housing for the athletes, basically wanting me to pay for the privilege of having the Big Wave World Tour come to town. I ran the Nelscott Reef Invitational 2 years ago, once again with great success without the Big Wave World Tour, and got worldwide publicity plus the increased heads in the beds that the contest brings. The only downside to the event was constant harassment from an employee of the Big Wave World Tour, Eric Akaskalian from TowSurfer.com, who was interfering with the contestants on his jet ski and setting up dangerous situations. 1 month later, the Big Wave Tour ran their own event, and their final being in predictable, blown-out conditions, which was webcast for the world to see. The bad conditions were predictable, but they ran the event anyway, so the world saw bad Nelscott Reef. In the 10 years I have run the event, I have passed on years because I didn't want the world to see a bad wave, and they showed junk their first time out. Without local oversight, they launched drones into Coast Guard airspace, invited the public via newspaper to trespass on private property, which they did, and to top it off, their employee, Eric Akaskaling, assaulted me in Lincoln City last spring, which I reported, and nothing ever came of it. Now, after going in front of a committee designated by the VCB, they have given the permit for the contest to Adam Wagner, an out-of-towner from Lake Oswego, representing an out-of-state entity from California. This is how the city repays its citizens who made Lincoln City famous around the world. Thanks, now go away. To add insult to injury, a contestable swell was on Nelscott Reef yesterday, but I was unable to call my contest, which has been planned and the invitations made, and the best SUP surface in the world were poised to come. On top of that, it turns out I was denied a permit during a time that was not in the waiting period of the Big Wave Tour. They weren't planning a contest during that time anyway, but I was denied a permit to run mine by the VCB. Now we go to the VCC and the $10,000 grant they graciously bestowed on me for the contest, but the VCB will not give me a permit to run it. Are you kidding? This is as outrageous as the time that I was issued an invoice by the VCB for a kiteboard contest 8 years ago that bounced. For your information, the criteria used for picking who gets the permit was the number of years the applicant has held the event, whether the applicant is local, how well the applicant has managed prior events, how well the applicant has complied with a special events permit, which event is likely to draw overnight tourists, which event is more likely to provide marketing and publicity for Lincoln City, which applicant has better financial backing and stability, which applicant has better expertise and experience, does the applicant have the backing and sponsorship of a well-respected professional organization, which applicant is more likely to hold the event again in future years. I don't think it takes a genius to make mental calculations and realize that the city is an accessory to theft, plain and simple. For your information, the committee that decided my fate was Karen Haddock from Pacific Ambulance, Keith Killian, our police chief, Elijah Davis from Samaritan Hospital, and Susan from the VCB. I made it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Good timing.
Jim Hoover. What is that yelling?
Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Jim Hoover.
Hold for just 1 sec, just till we kind of...
I get a couple extra minutes if I start right now?
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, I guess you could. You can have a lot of screaming going on down the hallway.
I hope. I'd say that's whistling, I hope.
Like a daycare or something. Maybe we could just close the door and proceed. Sounds good. Go ahead.
Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Jim Hoover. I live at 3150 East Devils Lake Road. I'm here tonight to say congratulations, you're succeeding. If your intent is to chill the population of the city of Lincoln City from becoming involved in politics, it's working. By example, 10 days ago I was called by the attorney that you've hired without the public knowing anything about, or about the details, and asked if I'd be willing to answer some questions regarding the mayor, who also sits up here before us tonight. And I consented because I was really curious to find out what this was all about. So last Saturday, a week ago, I sat down in front of a Mr. Pope, who is hired by the City of Lincoln City through Spear Hoyt Attorneys at Law. Now, we don't know how much he's being paid, how much you're spending on this little activity, or what the details are that you've used to hire him. But Mr. Pope brought a list of questions with him, and I asked if I could see that list of questions, and he reluctantly, since it was sitting in front of him, showed it to me, and I have a copy of it in front of me tonight. He started off by summarizing the purpose of his investigation. So I think for people in the general public, the people watching tonight, who are wondering how their tax dollars are being spent secretly by the City Council, not secretly because you haven't said you're not going to hire somebody, but secretly because you haven't really said what it is you're doing with these tax dollars. He said his task was to investigate the mayor's conduct for possible violations of the city charter, the City Council rules, or city ordinances. And when I said, boy, that sounds awfully broad, he said, well, yeah, it actually is very broad. And I said, well, let me look at the rest of the questions that you're wanting to ask me. So he asked the first one, he asked about my background and how long I was in the city of Lincoln City, which I thought was kind of interesting since that has nothing to do with the mayor. And then he went on, he wanted to know if I own a vacation rental dwelling. And I thought, well, that's really unique. And so about this point I said, how did you get my name? And he was really quick to respond by saying that he was given my name by the city attorney, and that one of the things he was investigating is whether or not there was an effort to get rid of the city attorney. I said, that sounded like a conflict of interest. He said, well, it might have been. Now, it's interesting to say that a couple days later, when his conversation was actually going to be published in the News Guard, or the News Times, he called the News Times and changed the story and said, actually, it wasn't that he was given by the city attorney that he was mistaken, that they were actually watching city council meetings for people like myself who were giving testimony, and then they were starting to talk to those people first, which I think has a really chilling effect on whether people are willing to come up here and speak openly with you about what they would like to see happen in the city of Lincoln City or their concerns. So after he wanted to ask me about my vacation rental dwelling, whether I had one or not, he wanted to know if I was a member of a Vacation Rental Dwellers Association. Well, quite frankly, I looked at him and said, what business is that of yours? Are you going to ask me about my ethnicity next, or my religion, my sexual preference, my orientation? And what does any of this have to do with the mayor? So the next question he was going to ask me, he said, is Ross Smith the founder of that organization? I thought, boy, that's a really strange question. But he went on, and his next question was going to be, when did I get involved with issues pertaining to the ordinance regarding vacation rentals? Then he went on, and he says, and he was asking these questions because I was reading them. He wasn't actually asking them at this point, but he brought them with him to ask. Have I ever been involved in any meetings where there was a discussion of vacation rental issues? Was there, at what point, this is a really interesting, he said, at what point did Jim decide, this was his note, that it would be a good idea to get rid of the city attorney? Was I unhappy with the city attorney over anything other than the vacation rental enforcement? So I'm looking down through this list, and about 80% of the questions have nothing to do with the mayor. About 80% of these questions are simply questions about myself. Now, at 6'2", 145 pounds, I'm not intimidated by a whole lot. But I can imagine a lot of people in Lincoln City, if they had an attorney that was hired by the City of Lincoln City Council, coming out asking them questions about their association with different associations, when they became involved in different organizations, what their views were on the city council or on the mayor or on the city attorney or on vacation rental dwellings. That might seem a little bit intimidating. So tonight you're going to be, choosing somebody to run for, or somebody to be on your city council. It's really interesting because I went around and I talked to a lot of people to see if they would put their name in as a possible candidate for you to appoint to city council. And what I found was most of the people that would oppose your view didn't want to have anything to do with being on your city council. And when I asked why, I said, well, if they're going to investigate the mayor for possible violations, what are they going to do to me if I disagree with them or if I vocalize a point that is less than popular with the rest of the city council? So congratulations. Whether you're intentionally trying to do it or not trying to do it, you're succeeding. You're stopping people from becoming involved in government. You're making decisions that you want to make that don't have opposition because you're discouraging people from coming up and giving testimony, and you're discouraging people from running for office because they don't want to be bullied by members of the city council that would hire an attorney. I would encourage you to make this public. If there's something that Mr. Williams has done wrong, let's talk about it. Let's not just go around and start. I tried all week to find the word that wasn't the witch hunt because I'm afraid that's not a politically correct word to use anymore. But let's do more than just have a witch hunt and go out and have this broad investigation, see if we can find something that sticks to the wall. See if we can find something that maybe we can hang somebody on who's a volunteer, who ran for office, who was elected by people. So as kindly as I can say it, shame on you, and thank you, Mr. President, for telling me my time is up.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you coming up. Anyone who did not sign up who'd like to speak at this time? All right. Thank you so much. All right. Where did I go? We are at the public hearings, public comment, an opportunity for public comment regarding adoption of the Lincoln City Transportation System Plan.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before I turn over this presentation to John Bosket, our main consultant, I want to just do some acknowledgments because we have been working on this new transportation system plan for about 3.5 years. We have had a lot of involvement from various people, and I'd just kind of like to mention who those people are. On our project team, the city staff, our management team included Lila Bradley, Public Works Director, myself, Stephanie Reed, City Engineer, Richard Townsend, Planning and Community Development Director. I guess I haven't said I'm Deborah Martson Nicholson, Senior Planner. We were able to do this transportation system plan update through funding from the Oregon Department of Transportation. Terry Cole is here. Maybe Terry can wave to you from the back. Terry is our contract manager. He's the Region 2 planner for ODOT. And back when we came to an agreement about the improvements to Highway 101 in the Nelscott area, ODOT stepped up and said, and we know you've been struggling with trying to update your transportation system plan and would like to help you with that. And so he hired, assigned to us, John Bosket, DKS and Associates. And John with his team and the Angelo Planning Group have worked with us over the past 3.5 years to provide us technical assistance. And it has been a really quite a great effort, I would say, even though it's taken a long time. One thing I do want to mention is that we had a technical advisory committee, and that included additional city staff and other agency staff. Allison Robertson, Steve Hodge, Allison is Urban Renewal and the Lincoln City Sustainability Committee. Steve Hodge, the Lincoln County Public Works. Keith Killian, our police chief. Don Baker, North Lincoln Fire and Rescue. Cinda Bruce from Lincoln County Transit. Julie Kay, Lincoln County Transit. Patrick Wingard, Department of Land Conservation and Development. We had a long list of project advisory committee members. Not all of them were with us the whole 3.5 years, and we added some new ones as we went along. But I would like to mention those people and the organizations that they represented, because as you'll remember, we asked organizations to send us a representative rather than selecting particular individuals. We had Rebecca Austin from Lincoln County Health and Human Services, Pam Barlow Lynn from Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, Jim Taylor and Judy Casper from the Nelscott Neighborhood Association, Robert Hunt, a citizen participant and pedestrian advocate, Paul Robertson, Bike Advisory Committee, Sandy Pfaff from Lincoln City VCB, Amy Ramsdale from ODOT, and Don Williams, Chamber of Commerce. After Don became mayor, we had Nani Augustine at our last meeting. Wes Ryan was the Lodging Industry and County Transit Board. We had two individuals representing the Oregon Paralyzed Veterans of America, David Miller and Ryan Green. We also had Dennis Gibson as an ADA representative and resident, and Steve Lewis as an ADA representative and resident. We had Soren Klingsporn, who was the bike and pedestrian advocate and is our sustainability chair. Star Khan was the liaison to the Hispanic community. Liz Barden represented the Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital. Carl Mosley, bike and pedestrian advocate. So in addition to that, we had a lot of people who came to meetings, filled out surveys, and visited our website and our interactive map to help us identify issues and opportunities in the city. And after 3.5 years now, we have come to you with a final draft of the Transportation System Plan. John Bosket has held joint workshops with the Planning Commission and the City Council, and last month was at the Planning Commission and received a recommendation for the plan for your approval. That recommendation is in your packets, and so with that, I will turn it over to John.
Excuse me, I picked up some Seattle crud last week, so I'll try not to cough in the microphone too much. Thanks for having me. I think what I'll do here is I'll give an overview of the transportation system plan process that we went through, an overview of the plan that's being presented here tonight, and then I'll hand it back to you for any questions and comments. So kind of first I'll go over and kind of remind why we have a transportation system plan, why we adopt it. The first reason is it's a state requirement to have an adopted transportation system plan. It's an extension of your comprehensive plan, and as such, it's important that when we do our transportation system planning for this, that it's consistent with the land use assumptions from your comprehensive plan, so the two are linked. Obviously, it provides you some direction. This is for long-range planning. This is a 20-year look out at 20 years of growth in the city and how your needs might change. And so it helps you see what your investment decisions may need to be. You can look at priorities based on the information that you find in there, which, as I'll discuss a bit later, is you're not locked into any priorities that show up in this plan. You can change them at any time as your circumstances change. It's handy for using when development comes in, so you know what transportation system improvements need to happen within that area. And the projects can be used to kind of reestablish your system development charge rates. And it's a very handy tool anytime your staff are applying for grants for transportation system improvements, because usually one of the first things that agencies supplying grants want to see is that the project is included in an adopted plan, so they know that there's community support for it, and it demonstrates a certain amount of project readiness, so it lowers the risk if they do provide you that grant. So a little overview on the process and where we've been. We started this in the fall of 2012 and worked our way through. You can kind of see the major steps over here on the left we went through, where we started off identifying goals and objectives. So we talked with our project advisory committee about what they wanted to accomplish and what was important to them. We framed up goals and objectives from that guided us through the project and gave us a way to evaluate alternatives when we developed them. We identified the existing conditions of the transportation system, as well as, again, looking out 20 years and seeing how those might change with more growth. Developed a range of solutions to address the needs, and again, screen those against the goals and objectives that we had talked about early in the project to see which ones fit Lincoln City the best. And then end up putting that in a draft plan. On the other side of the little chart here, it shows the kind of the public involvement and committee process that we went through at every step. So we had our project advisory committee that we met with 5 times throughout the project at every one of those milestones to present information and get feedback, as well as having as well as we did 3 different public event outreach milestones where we went out and shared our kind of what we read proposed at the time and got feedback back from the community, and then took that and made revisions and kept updating the plan as we went through. And the plan that I've got here today is very, very similar to the one that our project advisory committee recommended just this last summer, and which was the same version that we went through our public outreach, our last meeting. It was a tabling event at the farmers market, so very little has changed. I think from that discussion, I'll talk about some of the kind of the key highlights and the changes. A few projects were added, but it's probably 99% the same. And this is actually the same version of the plan that went through Planning Commission recently. So again, I think the last time I was talking to this group, it was the joint work session with the Planning Commission, City Council. So again, it's like 99% the same. There's just a few minor changes that I'll describe. So kind of an overview of the plan itself. There are a lot of chapters and parts in here. They're more informational. It might provide some guidance. And the parts that are kind of highlighted here, the vision, the plan, and the standard sections, or maybe with the more actionable pieces. So the vision is where those goals and objectives that we developed with our advisory committee are housed. While they were useful to us through the development of the TSP, they can still be useful to the city moving forward. There's going to be a lot of decisions you probably will have to make that aren't going to be completely foreseen and prescribed in the plan, and so understanding what the desired direction was in a lot of areas can still provide some guidance. Those will also be the basis for some policy and code amendments that will be brought to you shortly after this process, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation as well. The plan part, that's where the projects lie, which I'll go over briefly in a moment. So, bicycle and pedestrian projects, driving projects, kind of the whole range, that's housed in that chapter. And the standards section, there's a variety of things in there that help the city manage and operate facilities. So if you're building a new facility, it may give you some guidance on what maybe it should look like and some design criteria, or in the same manner if you're making a significant modification to a facility. So there's things in there like a functional classification system, so you know what streets are arterials versus local streets. And with those different functional classifications, there are different design types. So an arterial street that's supposed to carry more traffic would have a wider design as compared to a local street. There are also some things like access spacing standards and mobility targets that are probably mostly helpful when you're dealing with new development. So there's some expectations about how far driveways should be from each other so we don't get them too close together and create a lot of turning conflicts. And the mobility targets set kind of a threshold for congestion that would be expected in the city. So if a developer were doing an impact study, whereas today there is no adopted mobility target in the city, so there's really no way to gauge whether or not their congestion should be dealt with. Now we've provided a threshold. So if they do their impact study and they aren't meeting that threshold, they would need to mitigate that in some manner. So shifting into the discussion of the plan piece or the projects, there's kind of a discussion of funding, which is a key part of the whole project discussion, understanding how much money you may actually have to spend over 20 years. Helps you kind of, help you prioritize your projects and know where you should spend your money. There's a lot of good projects, and then, the priorities that we used in here, again, you're not stuck to in any way. What we did is we called these, different improvement packages, and then there's package 1 through 4. It gives some early indication of prioritization, but the idea behind that was that we took the money that we thought the city would have to spend based on your past revenue that was collected for transportation over the next 20 years, and that came out to about $2.5 million. And so we looked at projects that we felt best aligned with the goals and objectives and the comments that we got from the public, but that we could still afford within that $2.5 million. And that's what we call the improvement package 1, or what we would call our financially constrained plan. Improvement package 2 was just kind of a budgeting exercise to say, well, what would happen if we implemented new revenue streams and we could double the amount of money that you would have over the next 20 years. So instead of $2.5 million, it'd be $5 million. We called that package 2, so it's kind of a second tier of projects. And so on with package 3, it was another $2.5 million, and anything that was left was in package 4. So again, you're not tied to these priorities in any way because your circumstances are going to change from month to month and year to year as new funding opportunities come up that you didn't know about today, or a new development comes in that may change circumstances. So you kind of have to constantly monitor, the plan, as well as kind of where you're at in time and what makes sense and reassess your decisions about where to spend your money. But at least the budgeting exercise gives you an idea of how much you may have as you're making those decisions. In addition to that, ODOT did provide a rough estimate of how much they may be able to contribute to your transportation system mostly for projects probably on the highway or benefiting the highway system, so they could be parallel to the highway. And that was roughly another $5 to $10 million. And so ODOT projects are also identified within the plan. So looking at the projects themselves, there's quite a few projects in here. I wasn't going to go over them all individually. We went over them quite a bit through the past meetings, and like I said, not a lot has changed since then. So if you saw the plan back in the summer, really there's not a lot different. Some of the key changes that we made, and again, there's different categories as I mentioned. So we've got transit projects. We've got a group of projects that are focused more on demand management, because one of the things that we found out was there's a significant amount of congestion here in the summer, obviously, not so much when summer's gone, and it would be very expensive and very impactful to continue to provide so much capacity that could meet the summer demands. And so finding ways to manage that better, to maybe reduce the worst of the worst times, was an attractive option, and so we included a number of strategies in there. And then we also have the driving and the walking and the biking projects. Some of the key changes that we made since the last time we talked to you one is that we added a project to include a radar speed feedback sign on US 101 going northbound as you enter Cutler City. So that was a way to get people to slow down, and recognize you're not in a rural environment anymore, you've entered the city. So to try to control some of that would especially help with any pedestrian safety, because we do have another project in there for a pedestrian crossing in Cutler City. Another change that we made was that we added a road construction project. It's actually, let's see, zoom in here. This road in the north end of the city, in the earlier version of the plan, it was left as a study to do some further refinement and look at how the road would be built. After some consideration, we thought it would be important to, we left the study in there, but also to make it a project itself. And the concern was that if we didn't, it may significantly compromise your ability to set aside right-of-way as development comes in there, as well as get any kind of exaction or include some of that cost in your SDC rates. So if we didn't get the line on the map, so to speak, for a project in there now, it may have become very difficult to do it at all in the future. Another thing we added in here was in the Ocean Lake area. We added some further study for discussion on what should be done in Ocean Lake. Part of the reason is we looked at a lot of alternatives for what to do in that 4-lane section, whether it was to add bicycle facilities or add a turn lane, whether that was by eliminating connectivity so you couldn't make a left turn, or by removing parking. We had a lot of discussion with our advisory committee. We brought that to the joint work sessions. There was really no conclusion that I heard that the city was ready to make any changes in that area yet. But we also heard that people still wanted to have conversations and maybe weren't sure that leaving it that way was the right solution. So we have basically a project in here for further study to continue that. Ultimately, it's kind of an academic exercise from a technical standpoint. I think the big thing you need to deal with is coming to agreement locally on what are acceptable trade-offs. Because you're going to lose something in any way you change it, whether it's parking or accessibility from restricting left turns. It's obviously important that the affected people are all satisfied with the outcome of that decision. So I think it just requires some further discussion. The last project we added, which I think was actually a request at the joint work session we had, was we added a bicycle wayfinding signing project. So relatively inexpensive, but some wayfinding signing for people bicycling around the city, kind of at their scale, to let them know, how close it is and where to go to get to various destinations of interest. So I'm going to skip forward. The last thing I wanted to mention in here was going back to the code and policy amendments. This is not, we're not bringing them forward right now. Adopting amendments to your comprehensive plan, usually your policy and as well as your development code, are important to implement the recommendations from the TSP. You want those two to be in sync, obviously. And so the city staff is continuing to work on some recommendations that our team has provided, and I think we're expecting that to be coming to you in the coming months here, hopefully before year's end. But I just want to let you know that that's on the horizon. It is an important piece of actually putting your TSP in action. I think with that, I'm ready to hand it back to you.
Thank you. Any questions at all? Very thorough. Thank you so much for all your involvement in this.
Yeah.
Good. That leaves us with the adoption of the Lincoln City Transportation System Plan.
Your Honor.
Sir?
I think we want to call for public comment.
I thought I did, and nobody did. And then Ms. Nicholson came up. But I'll ask again. This is the public hearing, public comment section, an opportunity for public comment regarding adoption of the Lincoln City Transportation System Plan. And seeing none. Then please come forward.
Hi. My name's Riley Hoagland. I live here in town. I know that we put show intent signs around town, and in our joint session, it had been recommended to put, I suggested put some in Spanish as well. I know that we have the Wayfinder thing that was added. I would also like to see if that would be in Spanish as well. So the show intent to cross the sign for Highway 101 to be in Spanish, and also the wayfinding maps or information be in Spanish as well. That's all.
Thank you. Appreciate that input.
Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Seeing none. And we are at the adoption phase of the Lincoln City Transportation System Plan. So I'm looking for a motion.
I move.
Please do.
I move we adopt it.
All right. I have a motion. Ken?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion. I'm pulling teeth tonight. I have a motion and a second to adopt the Lincoln City Transportation System Plan. Any discussion?
Please, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
There's been a great deal of discussion already by a large number of volunteers and agency members, ODOT, DKS, Planning Commission. I appreciate everybody's input, and I'd like to thank all those volunteers, the consultants, ODOT staff, city staff, for their help with this project. I attended a number of committee meetings and public events, and I appreciate the energy and work that went into creating this important document. Again, thank you all.
Of that sentiment. Any further discussion?
I got one.
Yes, please.
Okay. This kind of comes under the heading of project for further study. This has been going on for 3 years, and my involvement with it has been a very few short months, so I hate to throw something in on ship that's already sailed. But one thing I'd just like to talk about for a minute is that there is out Schooner Creek Road, if you go out Schooner Creek Road back over the mountain, it'll put you down into Highway 18 just about 200 feet west of Rose Lodge Store. And also under the heading of demand management, that road is 13 miles long and it's half paved. And I'm just wondering the feasibility of making that a scenic alternative route. It would I hate to use the word bypass, but it would bypass most of Lincoln City and drop down into the Taft area. So on these periods of time that the traffic is just so prohibitive, it would give people it's a beautiful drive and an alternative route to get into town. It would also serve in case of an emergency, or tsunami, or earthquake. It would give us another alternative route rather than just being stuck with one way in and one way out. It gives us two ways in and two ways out. Anyway, I don't expect anything to be made of this, but I just felt I'd be derelict if I didn't at least mention it. And I talked to ODOT, and they said they didn't have any money for it, but they did have grants. And it's only 6 miles away from being all the way paved, so I don't know what the feasibility. So anyway, I thought it, I brought it up, that's my job.
Comment?
One more, please, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of the public, the draft plan of this transportation plan is available at lincolncitytsp.org and on the city's website, lincolncity.org. Paper copies are available for review at the Driftwood Public Library and the Lincoln City Department of Planning and Community Development here in City Hall.
Your Honor, I went back to ask
Do
Deputy
we have
Guest.
your microphone working? Is it? Okay.
Apparently, the DLCD rep had recommended we adopt an order adopting this. So we don't have an order in the packet, and DLCD had recommended we use an order. So you might want to consider amending the motion to be directing staff to bring back a written order for the adoption, as opposed to just doing it by motion.
Done.
We would need to amend the motion by unanimous consent.
Okay, so then I need all in favor of amending the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Carries. Now, then we have the original amended motion still to vote on, correct?
Yes.
Do I need a roll call on that?
It wouldn't hurt, I
I think yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Walke?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Norikis?
Yes.
And Sprague?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. All right, we are at ordinances. Ordinance 2015-12, an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City amending Lincoln City Municipal Code Title IX, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, Chapters 9128, Liquor and Marijuana, Section 9.28.190, Marijuana Use or Possession of Less than 1 ounce, to conform the ordinance to current Oregon law.
Your Honor, in the ordinance that the council did not pass 2 meetings ago,
Mr. Apicello, I don't think your mic is on.
I didn't touch it really. Okay. In the ordinance that you did not pass 2 meetings ago that had to do with the interim sales of recreational marijuana, there was a Section 2 which simply made a little housekeeping change to the existing code. As you know, effective, I think it was July 1, you can possess marijuana if you're over the age of 21 or older. However, it is still a violation to possess marijuana if you're less than 21 years old. So this is just a very small amendment to the code to add those words under the age of 21. So with that, I'll do the first reading, and if it's unanimous, we'll proceed to the second reading. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City amending Lincoln City Municipal Code Title IX, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, Chapter 9.28, Liquor and Marijuana, Section 9.28.190, Marijuana Use or Possession of Less than 1 ounce, to conform to the ordinance to Oregon law. Ask for a motion approving first reading, and if it's unanimous, we'll proceed with second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Have a roll call?
Ward?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Norikis?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
And Walke?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, this is second reading of an ordinance of the City of Lincoln City amending Lincoln City Municipal Code Title IX, Public Peace, Morals, and Welfare, Chapter 9.28, Liquor and Marijuana, Section 9.28.190, Marijuana Use or Possession of Less than 1 ounce, to conform the ordinance to Oregon law. Ask for approval of second reading and adoption of the ordinance.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Williams?
Yes.
Norikis?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Walke? And Ward?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. Resolutions 2015-26, a resolution adopting the City of Lincoln City's representation in the Lincoln City Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. So I guess I just need to...
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't see Mr. Nicholson here. This is a follow-up from your previous meeting in which he introduced... Great, there he is. In which he introduced the Lincoln County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Tonight it is before you for your adoption.
Welcome.
Thank you.
State your name, please.
Mark Nicholson, Emergency Preparedness Coordinator. You have in the packet, I know you have a recommendation from the Planning Commission to adopt the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. And at the last meeting, I gave a presentation and discussed the plan in some detail. So that's what we're asking you to adopt tonight.
Okay. I don't need to read this out loud, right? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 2015-26.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. If you don't mind, I'd like to read this resolution. A resolution adopting the City of Lincoln City's representation in the Lincoln County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lincoln City recognizes the importance of reducing or eliminating those vulnerabilities for the overall good and welfare of the community. And whereas the City of Lincoln City has participated in the development of Lincoln County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan, which has established a comprehensive, coordinated planning process to eliminate or minimize these vulnerabilities. And whereas the City of Lincoln City's representatives and staff have identified natural hazard risks and prioritized a number of proposed actions and programs needed to mitigate the vulnerabilities of the City of Lincoln City to the impacts of future disasters. And whereas these proposed projects and programs have been incorporated into the Lincoln County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan that has been prepared and promulgated for consideration and implementation by the City of Lincoln, by the cities of Lincoln County. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lincoln City as follows. City Council of the City of Lincoln City hereby accepts and approves of its section of the Lincoln County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan as a reasonable process to identify and plan for potential hazards in the City of Lincoln City and Lincoln County. The agency personnel of the City of Lincoln City are requested and instructed to pursue available funding opportunities for implementation of the actions and proposals designated therein. The City of Lincoln City will, upon receipt of such funding or other necessary resources, seek to implement the mitigation proposals identified by the jurisdiction's Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee, and the City of Lincoln City will continue to participate in the updating and expansion of Lincoln County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan in the years ahead. The City of Lincoln City will further seek to encourage the businesses, industries, and community groups operating within and or for the benefit of the City of Lincoln City to also participate in the updating and expansion of the Lincoln County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan in the years ahead. Passed and approved by the City Council of the City of Lincoln City this 12th day of October 2015. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's see, where was I? Yeah. And that was our discussion? All right.
Just one comment. I'd like to thank Mr. Nicholson for the great work that he's done on this. That's very thorough.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. All right, then I guess we can just do a voice vote on this. Favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, and now we are down to special order of business, appointment of Homeowners Association's board member and certificate of appreciation for Mr. Quant.
Your Honor, I think I'm going to be taking this one. Mr. Quant has left the area and resigned from his position as actually president of the Villages Cascade Head Homeowners Association. The city controls the association, and we're looking for a volunteer from the council to fill the vacant position. And then once the position on the board of directors is filled, then the board will vote on who to elect as president.
Could you fill us in a bit on requirements of that job?
Essentially, we have an annual meeting with the other homeowners. There's not a lot. And we have some business meetings where the board reviews things such as violations of the covenants and restrictions, whether or not to take any enforcement action relative to those, and also basically considering proposed amendments to the covenants and restrictions. I'd say the burden has not been very extreme, but they have had a few periods of more activity and then some periods of where nothing happens.
And dates would not conflict with any councils?
Yes, we do not have, there are no set meetings. They're called and then notice is given.
Okay. Any volunteers? I'll volunteer. Let's have someone on there. So
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would someone make a motion and also include giving a certificate to Mr. Quant?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Are we sending a written certificate of appreciation to Mr. Quant? I would like to if we could. He jumped in there with, right after we bought the villages, and he's been serving on that homeowners association ever since as the leader, and I think we should thank him with
Absolutely.
a certificate.
Do we need a motion to do that?
Unanimous consent will work.
Then unanimous consent to send a certificate
Yes.
of appreciation to Mr. Quant for his efforts on the Homeowners Association Board.
Also unanimous to appoint the mayor.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. One down, more to go. All right, fee waiver request, Roads and Improvement Association, REIA, for zoning ordinance amendment.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. I'm Richard Townsend, Planning Director. You have in your packet a request from the Roads and Improvement Association to a request to waive the fees for rezoning, and you heard from Ms. Thompson and Mr. Hinton on that issue, and actually they asked that you initiate the rezoning of Roads End yourself. That, just by way of background, for a text amendment, which is one of the things they want to have happen, the application fee is $1,500 plus a deposit of $1,000 to handle the cost of preparing, printing, and mailing notices to affected people. Then the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning is another $2,500, so there's a total of $5,000 outlay initially. They may get some of that back from the deposit for the notice, but it just depends on how many notices go out. They are, as they explained to you, the homeowners, or not a homeowners association, but the recognized neighborhood association for Roads End, and a membership organization with a fairly small budget. So they've asked that they not have to pony up that $5,000 to do this. You have basically three options here, I think. One is to do nothing and say we don't want to waive any fees or anything. Another is to amend the ordinance relating to fees to allow you to waive fees. Right now you don't have specific authority to do that. A third alternative is to amend the fee ordinance to give you, or not fee ordinance, but fee resolution, to give yourself the authority to waive fees in specific cases. And the fourth option, which came up after the Roads End Improvement Association letter was sent to the city, would be for the council itself to initiate the rezoning of Roads End. Now, under the terms of the settlement agreement on the annexation of Roads End, both the city manager and I are specifically precluded from making a recommendation that an ordinance be initiated. So I can't give you any recommendation on that. I'm just telling you what your options are. Again, you can do nothing and say, if you want to do this, you got to pony up the $5,000. You can amend the fee ordinance, amend the fee resolution, or initiate the rezoning yourself, which would amount to basically telling me to go ahead and undertake it to start the ball rolling on the hearing process through the Planning Commission and then ultimately here to the City Council again.
Mr. Mayor, didn't our agreement specify that no zoning changes would take place until 5 years had elapsed?
Actually, it's interesting because that's sort of been what I always thought in the back of my mind, but a careful reading of it just says that I can't recommend initiating it, the city manager can't recommend initiating it, but both the Planning Commission and the City Council do have the authority to initiate rezoning of Roads End, even within that 5-year period.
It wasn't the intent to hold off any changes for 5 years?
I can't tell you what the intent was. It's kind of unusual because it's specific. The city manager and the planning director can't initiate anything, but it says that nothing herein shall preclude the Planning Commission or City Council from initiating rezoning amendments at the request of property owners, the Roads End Improvement Association, or third parties.
So in answer to your question, I think that no, it's not really precluding you, and I don't think the intent was to say nobody rezones anything for 5 years. I think it was specifically contemplated that REIA, in the language Richard just read, would come and ask you to do it. And so I know the planning director can't recommend it, the manager can't recommend it, I certainly would recommend it.
I'd like to see what the zoning, how the zoning would
that's my
would
question.
play out.
Well, remember with any initiation of an amendment, you're not approving the amendment.
Right.
You're just initiating the request. You're agreeing to run it through the process. And essentially the effect is the application requirements are changed somewhat, and there's no application fee. But it would go through the regular notice requirements that would have to be met, and it would be processed through the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and it would come to you to make a decision. Just because you initiate it does not mean you are bound to approve it.
And there's one other question. What is the percentage of membership of REI as compared to the number of residents in Roads End?
I don't know. Maybe Ms. Thompson or Mr. Hinton could answer that, but I don't know.
Yeah, please do.
It's a very good question. I would guess, and this is a guess, about a third of the residents are members, or a third of the owners are members. Actual full-time residents are a small percentage of Roads End. The vast majority are second home owners. But within our membership, I think we just kind of concluded it, and I believe we're about 300.
So there are 900 representatives or residents there then?
There's about 900 properties.
That's what I should say, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So the percentage of full-time residents would be higher than the percentage of homeowners that are members of REIA?
The percentage of full-time residents is, I believe, 15% of the entire properties in Rhodesville.
Right.
Okay. And I should add that these non-REIA members have an opportunity to have input into this plan.
Okay, so we're being asked to waive fees just to get the ball rolling. And whether we waive those or not doesn't stop this from going forward. Is that correct?
The initial request was to waive the fees, and you have a couple possible ways of doing that. Then, theoretically, if you do it or don't do it, theoretically that would not stop them from applying. They'd have to pay the money, but or you could waive it if you decide to do that, and that would allow it to go forward. The other alternative would be just to, rather than actually go through the process of having to waive the fees, it was to initiate the rezoning yourself.
Mr. Mayor? I would rather we initiated the zoning change if we were to go ahead and do that, for the simple reason that I think if we waived the fees, it would show that maybe we waived them for one person or one organization, but maybe we didn't for them, and now we have a problem. So I think we could eliminate that, but if we were the ones that initiated the ordinance, or the zone change, I should say.
Yes.
And with the annexation agreement saying that with the recommendation of the REIA specifically, we could initiate it. I think that's good supporting language.
It does say that at their request you could initiate it.
And we have had a request.
I guess my question would be, well, okay, so if we initiate this, and then we still have the time to modify and change direction, because we still don't know what it is that's being asked for, and that's my concern. But once we begin this, we can then modify.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
All you're doing is starting the ball rolling.
I can live with that.
Mr. Townsend, you've been working with the organization for a number of years, is that right?
Yes.
What has that work consisted of, and how do you feel about it?
My work has principally been on telling them what the ordinance is, the Lincoln City ordinances are, what the process is. They had a committee that went through our zoning ordinance and the county's zoning ordinance, put together basically a spreadsheet saying, with a several-page spreadsheet of several different criteria that they wanted addressed or matters that they wanted addressed, and comparing the two, the county and the city zoning, and then saying what they wanted from that. And so they've got the sort of their list of what they want the zone to look like. I took that and put it into the same format as our zoning ordinance for their convenience, so they could see what they were asking for, basically, in terms of an ordinance. And just to put it basically in ordinance format so they could see what they wanted. I did not comment on or make any changes to things that I agreed or disagreed with or whatever. I just basically gave them back what they wanted in what they said they wanted in a different format than what they handed to me. And it's a reasonable start, I believe.
A reasonable start and feasible?
Yes.
Thank you.
And again, I don't want to prejudge it or anything like that, or advise you on it at this point, because there's the public hearing process at the City Council and at the Planning Commission, both. And actually, there also is in the settlement agreement, there's requirements for some workshops and public participation events as well, beyond the normal requirements.
Within that process, at what point are you then allowed to make recommendations?
I think assuming that you want to go ahead with initiating yourselves, I think that at that point I can make recommendations on what I would recommend that the city does. The settlement agreement, the way I read it, just says I can't recommend that you initiate it.
Okay. Good.
I have one other question.
Please.
Does, in your knowledge of the request, does the thing that they're requesting change our comprehensive plan going forward?
It is a comprehensive plan amendment in that it would create a new zone, and it would and a new comprehensive plan district, basically, and then rezone the Rhodes End area into that new zone.
Does that put us out of whack anywhere?
No.
You think, or would it?
Not on the face of things, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, then we need motion.
I would move that we go ahead and start the process of looking at the requested zone change in Rhodes End by REIA.
Is that satisfactory, Mr. Apicello?
Yes, you're initiating the amendments requested by REIA.
Right.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Do I need a roll call, a voice? I'm a little lost on this one. Roll call, please.
Sprague?
Yes.
Walke?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
And Norikis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to you folks. All right. We did the fee waiver request. City manager, city attorney reports. Council candidate interviews.
Okay, as we discussed, tonight is the night for you to interview the candidates, and so we'd like to invite our three candidates to come forward. Mrs. Steer is passing out to you a list of the questions that I had sent to you last week for your review. The process by which we'll go through this is that each candidate will have an opportunity. Oh, you guys, three right in the front there. Mr. Mayor, you'll lead off with asking a question. The first person will answer that, and then it will rotate through the other two, and then you'll start with the second person with the next question. Upon finishing the interviews, we will be casting ballots, and again, Mrs. Steer has prepared those for you. After some discussion and casting of the ballots, she will give you the results of the balloting. At that point in time, there would be a motion that would need to be made from one of the councilors confirming the results of the voting and the ballots, and appointing an individual to the City Council to fill the remainder of Jim Davis's term of office. If the balloting produces a tie, there will be an opportunity for you to have discussion of that. Then there will be recasting of the ballot of the two that had tied. And again, following that balloting, Mrs. Steer will give you the results. And then again, a motion will need to be made by a councilor confirming the results of the balloting and appointing an individual to fill the City Council vacancy for the remainder of Mr. Davis's term of office. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. I'm struggling right now whether I want to participate in this or not. I'm very upset that we're not having an election, and that is no reflection on you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for participating and stepping forward. I just... I'll move forward with this, but I'll leave it at that. All right. Please introduce yourselves and tell us why you want to be a city councilor, your vision for the city, and what you hope to accomplish in your tenure. I don't know if we're going alphabetically or numerically. How about if we start on my right? We'll start.
Oakland, and
Let's go in the order that
Oh, I apologize. There it is. Thank you. Absolutely, and feel free to ask.
Well, Counselor, just as a reminder, the next person will not be in this order.
Oh, okay.
So you're beginning with the first person, then the next question will start to that person, the next person over. So if you begin on the far right, then the next person will begin in the middle, and so forth.
Good, then since I get to say that, we're going to start on the right with no further objection. Thank you. Question was, it wasn't, just please introduce yourself and tell us why you want to be a city councilor, your vision for the city, and what you hope to accomplish in your tenure.
My name is Riley Hoagland, and I would like to be a city councilor to bring a new, different perspective than what's currently serves on council. I feel that I can bring a voice of people, a population of people to city council that may not be represented. I would love to see more things for families. I would love the lake to be our main attraction and not to be something that we're all embarrassed about. And I would like to see more events and things for people to do. We say it's a great place for families to come and visit, and I would like to have more opportunities to bring things that I think could benefit the city.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
My name is Dick Anderson. I have been a city councilor and mayor, as you know. The reason I want to and have put my hat into the ring for this seat is actually we're talking about the seat that I once held with Mr. Norikis in Ward 2, and at that time was elected as city councilor. Once my term as mayor concluded, I didn't walk away from public service. As you know, you appointed me to the Budget Committee. I've stayed involved that way with the city. I've attended all your work sessions throughout the year on the important issues that you've been confronting for the city. And for me, the primary reason is there's still unfinished business that needs to be done. You know, whether it's the villages, completing that, whether it's sewering the lake, whether it's, getting more people involved in city government. It's important that you have someone, I think, that knows the process, can hit the ground running, and contribute.
Thank you. Dean.
Yes, my name is Dean Coppage. I appreciate the opportunity also of putting my name in the hat. My wife and I have had the privilege of living in Lincoln County for 25 years now, almost 26, and in Lincoln City in Ward 2 for the last 15 years. I had the opportunity to work for the city urban renewal agency for 4.5 years as the contract administrator project manager for a number of projects that were done. I would like to serve on the council because I feel like that I do bring some qualifications with me. I have been in the construction land development business for 52 years now. I understand how the city works. I understand how the different departments within the city works. And I think I would have something to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe it's to you, Councilor Walkie.
Next question, and Mr. Anderson would be first. Workforce housing is in short supply in our community. What do you think the city can do to improve our workforce housing inventory?
Well, you're absolutely correct. Workforce housing and affordable housing and really market rate housing is in short supply in our community as well as up and down the coast. I think Mayor Williams would agree that his peer group, other mayors, would say the same thing about their communities on the coast, that there's a real short supply of workforce housing. The city has already started the process, quite frankly, by buying the villages in a low market, the market we came through in 2008. We've got the dirt. We've land banked 363 acres of our already platted, recorded housing project. And that's a key element right there, because with the land available, then you can do all sorts of things. I think you've had a work session on the villages this summer. I think you're heading the right direction with starting analyzing what your vision really is for that property, even with the PUD that's there. You know, what kind of changes need to be made. As you may or may not know, my professional background is in housing and real estate lending, 34 years in that industry. I worked for a corporation called Fannie Mae, and we worked, my operation worked exclusively in the affordable workforce, hard-to-house arena in Oregon and Idaho. So I'm well acquainted with housing samples, financing structures that could add to our options in Lincoln City.
Yep.
I certainly concur with what Dick has said. Affordable housing within Lincoln City and within Lincoln County generally, we are in a great deficiency in that area. We need to provide a place. Week before last, I had a few afternoons that I just drove around Lincoln City looking at areas that were convenient to shopping, convenient to food stores, and convenient to services that people of lower incomes need to have provided and have access to. In addition to the 360-something acres at the village of Cascade Head, which very few cities have the opportunity to have that kind of land at their disposal for any type of housing. But I also noticed that there were a number of areas within the city, a number of them located right here in the central zone, that would lend themselves greatly to affordable housing and primarily multifamily type housing. I'm not versed on financing ways and how to put and structure these things together as Dick is. That would be invaluable for the city to have his input. But it is possible. We just need to gather all the resource information, the different plans and grants and helps that might be available, and start to work on it. It is a desperate need for a lot of people that are having to live outside of the area and bear the cost. If they want to work in Lincoln City, in the service industry especially, they have to commute to get here and live elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hoagland?
I also agree that there's a great need for workforce housing. I feel that, like the other two men here, we have the availability, we have the land, we have people. I don't feel that the people know how to best apply their desire to get the houses. I know that the city has people that know how to do that or has the availability. We have culinary cook classes, we have workshops for individuals. Why couldn't we also have workshops for people who want to have a house or the desire to do that and may not know how to do that. If the city has a way, or could the city have a way to help them learn how to get a house, or $250,000 house isn't going to be someone's first home, but teach them the way that they could get a first home within Lincoln City. And if they go through the classes and we have the land and you successfully complete this course, hey, maybe that's something that will benefit them for a first-time house, that they show the desire, they show the need, they have the job, they have the stability. I think that if we approach it from that of educating the people, you can make the houses and you can say that they're there, but if you don't know how to do it and all you know is how to rent out an apartment for $800, that's all you're going to know how to do. So if we make it open to people to learn how to do it, and I think that they would do it that way. I think that's more important.
Thank you. Craig.
Let's see, this goes to Riley, I think. Oh, Dean.
Yep.
Pardon me. As you know, VRDs have been a much debated topic in Lincoln City. And I think I can probably say that goes back to about 1998, somewhere around there.
Yes.
What are your solutions for the VRD situation?
Mr. Sprague, this is one of those situations that we were talking about when I went to work for the city in 2000, and I'm sure it was being talked about beforehand. There has been a lot of energy, a lot of manpower, a lot of hours, and a lot of money involved in trying to work this situation out. It still hasn't come to fruition. One of the things that I think would move this along would be, first of all, to come up with a reasonable length ordinance that is more in keeping with what Newport does. Granted, Newport has less VRDs than Lincoln City has, but they have a rather simple ordinance. They are effective in regulating that ordinance. So that would be one thing. Number two, I am aware that there are a multitude of different time limits set on different VRDs. I'll be the first to say I don't own one. I know several people that do have them. And their time limit range from 90 days to a written signed agreement from the city allowing them to rent that property 365 days a year if the market would allow that. We've got to come to a reasonable accommodation for everybody, and I don't know whether that's grandfathering certain places in that have written agreements. The last thing the city wants to do is put themselves in a position to get more or any additional legal action taken against the city. That could prove to be expensive. But I think especially the council, as reasonable men, can get together and the staff at the city can come up with an ordinance fairly quickly that can be passed and everyone can agree to. The city, of course, benefits from the transient room tax. I've had the privilege for 2 years now serving on the Transient Room Tax Appeals Committee. We don't have a lot to do. We have actually heard one appeal in the last 2 years, so that must mean something's going right. But there is a revenue stream that can be realized from that. And there are ways that I have heard people on staff at the city suggest to be reasonable in the enforcement of whatever regulations and codes were put into effect, so that people would know right off the bat what's expected and what would happen if they didn't comply with those regulations. So I think it can be done. I don't think it's an impossible task. I think maybe we have, as a group within the city, And citizens of the city have discussed these things to death to where it's just gotten so complicated, nobody really understands what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoagland.
Could you please just ask the question one more time, please?
Sure. As you know, VRDs have been a much debated topic. What are your solutions for the problem?
I feel that if there was a unanimous quiet time for all VRDs, not just in Olivia Beach, it's such and such a time to such and such a time. So if there was a universal quiet time for VRDs, that would probably let everyone know that there was, there's a time for quiet time, since that seems to be the most often complaint. I also feel that if there was a full-time, 24 hours a day code enforcement or some kind of officer that was, or position that was created to specifically handle VRD investigations or noise complaints or things like that, it would help the citizens feel that they have backing. I think my biggest, what I hear the most is that they get to do and park however many cars they want, they can be as loud as they want. I feel that if surrounding residents had support for their community or their street or their block, they would feel more comfortable with having the VRDs. They're very important to our economy. I don't know how many there are. There's hundreds of them, I know that. They bring in large groups of people that spend the night here, and we all know that. It brings money that's where they want to come. Is there too many VRDs to hotel rooms? We'll never know. I don't believe the TRT tax, the way that it's all set up, we can know occupancy percentages from total number of rooms available in the city to total number of occupied rooms. If that's something that can be written down and given to people to know that we have 15,000 rooms and 7,000 are rented out every day, maybe people would feel better about it. If you can make it transparent, maybe they can be more comfortable. Don't make it a secret as far as whose house is a VRD or who's not. If we all know, then okay, we all know. Then we can move on and go forward from that. But we don't know, I don't know. I just feel that it could be better understood that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Sprague, I find the question to be very interesting, since as I was listening to my court's answer it, I'm recollecting that my entire time on City Council and Mayor and Planning Commission has always had this topic attached to it, and we continue. As you know, the last council dealt with this issue for a good 3-4 years, made some recommendations, actually did ordinances, and then the public had an election or a vote to see and actually overturned the majority of that work. So I think the debate is pretty simple. The people have spoken. There was an election in May, and as I understand the ballot, it was revert back to the ordinance that was in place. So my suggestion is you let that ordinance ride, give the people what they asked for by vote, and enforce it.
Thank you.
All right, Chester, your turn, and that'll be where do we end up? Over to Mr. Hoagland.
Mr. Hoagland, Lincoln City operates under the council-manager form of government. Please describe that form of government and City Council's role in that government.
I believe that it is, from what I understand, it's a group of the group. No one person has more authority over the other, and I think that that's really good that everyone can bring their ideas without feeling that it's a less idea or than someone else's, and that every person's idea counts as much as the other member of council.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Yes, Mr. Norikis, the form of government is one where council works as a body and decisions are made by the body. Council actually hires a professional city manager, city attorney, and municipal judge. Those three individuals actually report to the council as a body. And I think as we've all learned, each council member has one vote. So someone, mayor may have the title, but everyone has one vote, and the majority rules in the issues.
Thank you.
Mr. Norikis, I have had the opportunity of doing construction and development in 6 different states for many municipalities under various forms of city government. And it has been my experience that the one form that seems to have worked best, at least in those that I had an opportunity to appear before, has been the city council, city manager form of government. The city council is the body of 7 people, including the mayor, that vote on the decisions. Each one has one vote. The city manager acts as like the CEO of any corporation, kind of holding everything together and bringing all this together. The planning commission is a function of the city. They operate independently, but answer to then the final authority is the city council as far as passing any ordinances or regulations within the city. So my experience has been is that it works well. It works best when we have unity amongst the council. They're not always going to agree. There's 7 individuals. Each individual may have a different perspective. But if we look at it from the standpoint that irregardless of whether the council is elected at large or in a ward system, they all first and foremost have the welfare of the citizens of their city, in this case Lincoln City. The welfare of Lincoln City and its citizens are paramount to everyone. And I don't think there's a single member sitting up above me tonight that doesn't recognize that and doesn't hold that as their chief premise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ward. Mr. Anderson.
Well, I'm just making my notes. Mr. Anderson, in a legislative body, decisions are made by a majority vote. How do you propose to work with fellow councilors to win support on any given issue, and what do you do when you lose?
I guess trying to put all that question in perspective, it's about relationships, first and foremost for me, and a body of 7 individuals. And you're correct, the majority wins. So when an issue comes before the body and is discussed, public hearings, the public gets involved, the council discusses amongst themselves, and a vote is taken. It takes, in this case, 4 yes votes to move an issue. Pretty cut and dry. If you happen to be an individual that doesn't agree with the movement of that issue, that's the way things work. You come back and deal with council, your individual council members on other issues, because tomorrow there's another issue you're going to be participating, discussing, reviewing, moving on with for the benefit of the community. So I guess I'm a little bit chagrined of trying to get at what you're looking for as the nexus of your question. I can give an example. When I first joined council some 6 years ago, it was clear that there were a lot of 6-1 votes. I was a 1. And then over time, serving on council, talking with individuals, sharing my ideas, talking, with individuals, votes changed. It started becoming 3-4, those kind of things. So it doesn't have to be a all-inclusive 7-0 or 6-1. It's okay to disagree as long as you can come back tomorrow and deal with the next issue in a good frame of mind and an honest frame of mind.
Thank you. So, Dean.
Thank you.
Did you want me to reread that?
No, I remember what you asked.
Okay.
Thank you, though. When we're in as Lincoln City is, where we have councilmen that are elected by wards, I think, first of all, it's important for any councilman to have regular contact with those citizens within their ward area to see what, A, their concerns are, what their wishes are, what directions they might like to see things go, and then come back to the council and be able to communicate that to the fellow council members. One of the finest arts in any, whether it's a corporation or whether it's a city, is learning the art of building consensus. We're not always going to agree on any one subject, but in any subject there are bound to be points that everyone can agree on. If the council can come to a consensus of it, sometimes an individual councilman's wishes will be heard and they will, in effect, get their way. Other times they won't. But everyone can be in a win-win situation as long as there's been transparency and everyone has had a chance to put their input in. And as Dick so eloquently said, you come back the next council meeting, there's another whole list of things to go through. So it's never the same subject over and over and over. But you can't have thin-skinned and say, well, gee whiz, I didn't win that last one, so I'm not going to be very nice and cooperate with them for a while. That just doesn't work. Whether it's an organization, whether you're serving as a volunteer with some organization, whether you're working for a corporation, or whether you're part of a city council. Thank you.
Would you please read the question again?
Sure. In a legislative body, decisions are made by a majority vote. How do you propose to work with fellow councilors to win support on any given issue, and what do you do when you lose?
I feel that in this context, losing isn't about me. It's about the city. If we're talking about things that would be best for the city, we probably would all agree that that should happen. When you're trying to bring up an idea, if you give someone all of what you know and you're honest about what you know and you present it as such, then we can all accept that. I don't think that you all think that you lose on things that you vote no for. And I don't think that I would feel that way either. You have your opinion, your desire, and your feelings about a certain subject. I don't think losing is something that I would come into your guys' minds, and neither mine. So.
We'll start with Mr. Anderson. What type of industries do you see coming to Lincoln City, and what is the city's role in attracting those industries? Oh, is it? I'm so sorry. Yeah.
It wouldn't have bothered me if Dick had gone first.
All right.
You know, Lincoln City has primarily been, since its inception, a tourist city and devoted primarily to the tourist industry. We have very few industries as such. We do have property available for industrial development. Our transportation is not as good as cities along the I-5 corridor, but it is getting better. There are those small businesses that would like to relocate to a scenic, wonderful area. We have the internet, we have high speed, we've got good telephone service, we've got good TV service from different providers. So I think that we've got all of the accoutrements that we need to attract. We're in competition with a lot of other cities along the coast as well as in the valley in Oregon, and they're all looking for the same thing. How can we attract more business to increase our tax base? So it's not an easy proposition, but it takes boots on the ground going out and making these contacts. There are groups and associations that specialize in this. I think one of the areas that we probably haven't touched on or made use of, the lodging industry is very active in their recruitment of trade shows, associations, conventions, and meetings. There are a lot of contacts to be made, and I think the city would do well to ride on some of those coattails and make those same contacts. I was having lunch down at Salishan with the general manager down there this last Friday, and there was a statewide meeting of family law practitioners. A lot of people there. They all have contacts too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Will you please reread the question?
Absolutely. What type of industries do you see coming to Lincoln City, and what is the city's role in attracting those industries?
People come to Lincoln City for 7 miles of beach. They're going to come here. If we can give them more things to do, they'll stay longer. I don't think that we need to attract more people necessarily. It's a beautiful place to come. If we have more things to do, then it would only benefit us as far as events, attractions, city-sponsored things. I think the two things that we do now is the Kite Festival and I think we only do a couple of city-sponsored things. If we did more things like that, I think that would help bring people for specific events and try to work with the larger, like the casino, or work with other events so that you didn't have two things going on the same weekend kind of thing. Just plan it better so that the events are available for everybody that would want to go.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I do not have a list of industries to attract. However, there are some things that I do know, and Dean alluded to it, that by our tourist industry that we're most noted for, we have a lot of people who come and visit Lincoln City. And every time a visitor comes, we're showing off to them, or we at least have the opportunity to show off to them about what a good place this might be to bring your business or your family, relocate here. In order to make that work, and again, it's been spoken to, but our highway system is a must. More concentration on getting people from the valley to Lincoln City. So those highways have to work in the good weather and the bad weather. As well as some of the things we forget about is when, perhaps if you've relocated, what you look at, and that's the school system. So does our county have, the best possible school system it can have for families, and the medical facilities? I think two crucial elements that are outside the realm of city government, but very much a part of the overall holistic community that we need to be a part of. So working with other entities that make up the whole community would put a better foot forward for all our visitors, and inviting people who are here, maybe through the VCB or anything else, having kind of that notice, a quiet little one-liner that says, have you thought of relocating? Now that you're enjoying yourself here in Lincoln City, have you thought of relocating? Let us help.
Thank you. Sir Walkie. Walk around a little bit. I am listening, though.
Devil's Lake is a unique natural resource for our community. What do you think the city can do to preserve this resource?
I think I think a lot of us kind of shy away from it. I think it's embarrassing for a lot of people to know that, we have the blue-green algae, we have contaminants in the water. By making it a top priority of bringing back the beauty of the lake, it would only benefit the city as a whole, the properties. Now, if that entails sewering the east side of the lake or not putting roads where they need to be, I've sat in some meetings that people bring different ideas, or they say that because of the salmon we can't do anything. But if we say because of the salmon we should be doing something, cleaning up or maybe mandating what you can and can't do around the city, the lake would be best. If the lake is beautiful, we're all going to benefit. We're all going to want to go inside it. We're all going to go. We live here all year round. Tourists may not know that last week it said don't go in the lake, but we remember that, and I think that carries through our attitude about the lake itself, that we all have this kind of negative thing about it. But if we were proud of it and made it a top priority, we would all have that pride about it, and we would all be, I don't know the word for it, but it would benefit us all.
Ms. Wolke, your question leads me to think that that we don't currently view the lake as an asset and a viable tool in this community, and I think that's contrary. I am one who believes the lake and our two freshwater streams to the north and the south need more attention for our overall advertising, not just the beach, but a freshwater lake and two freshwater streams with great fishing. And I guess I would beg that the city is doing a lot to help in conjunction with the governing body that has the lake under jurisdiction. Let's remember, we've got a city, we've got a Devil's Lake Water District, we've got a county, so 3 different governmental entities all around, which I hope have the same interest of a viable lake. Perhaps needs to, spend more time together, but I can think of, the discussions around the septic systems, the sewering the lake, all lead, and using the tools of the different governing bodies. It's cooperation, and as long as it's on the list and high on the list as a priority, and I think in Lincoln City's, in the governmental municipality case, keeps it on the road map as a asset and marketing it, more pressure will be brought forth to help keep it as clean as possible and clean it up.
In my humble opinion, one of the biggest problems with the lake is the influx of raw sewage that comes in from the septic systems around the north end and on the east side of the lake. Sewering the east side and the north end is a big ticket item, but there are systems available. One of the best systems was started by a gentleman in Roseburg, Oregon, 35 years ago. He worked for the sanitation department there, for the sewer treatment plant. And he saw a lot of deficiencies in trying to get parts for their old plant. So in his garage, he started manufacturing with another fellow that worked for the company. Replacement parts in pieces. Their dining room table was their shipping center. His wife jumped in to help. That company has developed into a company called Orenco Systems, and they're in Sutherland, Oregon, just north of Roseburg and Winchester area. They have some of the finest self-contained small and large package systems for individual properties and for municipalities. One of the problems that they have run into in bringing a lot of these things to Lincoln City, and I've worked with this company for 20-something years now, and have utilized a number of their systems. One of the churches here in town used one of their systems just a year and a half ago. They're good people. A lot of their new systems and new way of doing things have not been passed by the Lincoln County Commission for adoption in this area. So I think there's some things that we could do as a city to elicit the cooperation from the county in moving some of these things forward. Thank you.
Councilor Sprague.
Let's see, Dick, I think you're next.
Take it.
The long-term maintenance of our streets is an important priority to the City Council, and it's going to require additional funding for street improvements. What new revenue sources for funding streets would you support?
Interesting, again, a question that's been kicked around for a long time. I can tell you, personally, I'm not ready to vote for a new revenue stream. For me, regarding streets, and I would agree, streets are one of the items that doesn't have a dedicated funding source. However, in the last 2 years, the city has annexed Rhodes End, and or I guess it's been longer than 2 years now, integrated a lot of new property taxes. Along with that has been an increase in the TRT, transit room tax, from not just a rebounding economy, but from Rhodes End with a lot of vacation rentals. So that's another source of funds that have come in, already allocated towards streets. And the 80-20 urban renewal dollars, where the city is now getting 80% of the revenue that was going to urban renewal. So there are three sources of revenue the city didn't have before that Council and Budget Committee has used for specific projects, not long-term, but specific projects. So before I voted for another tax dedicated to streets, I would want to capture that money and decide whether it makes sense to maybe allocate a portion of that to streets. Because it's there, it's new money in the last 2 to 3 years, and it hasn't been allocated other than to specific projects, but nothing long term.
Thank you. Dean.
First of all, I think Lincoln City and their Public Works Department have done an admirable job of maintaining the streets within the city. Not to the degree that they would have liked to have been able to improve the streets, but I think they have dodged a bullet from other municipalities, and I'm thinking primarily of Portland because I'm there a lot. They are in a horrible situation with their streets because primarily of deferred maintenance. I concur with Dick that passing a new tax would be difficult at best, but looking at the condition of the streets, and the Public Works Department has a good list of the ones that need to be improved. They have priorities set, and allocating some of those funds that we haven't had available to allocate to streets in the last number of years would be a good way to start. We don't want to see Lincoln City streets get in worse shape. It's bad for tourism. It's bad for the general population. The auto clinics that do wheel alignment and such, they like it. If the street and the potholes are deep, it makes more business. But it's not good for the citizens as such. So if the council could look with city staff at reallocating some of those additional funds that might be available now that aren't spoken for other things, I think it would be a good way to start and to keep up with the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Riley.
In the joint meeting with the Planning Commission and City Council for the Transportation Safety Plan, I suggested stoplight cameras, and I really was thinking about speed cameras. If we had a couple of speed cameras in the more notorious spaces in town, I think that would, one, deter people from speeding and keep our streets safer, but then the monies collected from that could be used for the street. I also feel and have felt since I was on the budget committee, a franchise fee. I know the city of Newport uses a franchise fee for their water. I think that if we did that, instead of raising the water rates to catch up, I know that we didn't raise them for a while, and then we had to kind of raise it to meet the demand. But if we had a franchise fee on the water, it could be used specifically for that, where maybe the monies that we have and that the 80-20 would take some time to do, but it seemed then that we could have a franchise fee on the water and that we could use 100% for the streets instead of raising the rates every year.
Thank you.
Mr. Coppage, the city attorney is one of 3 employees that reports directly to the city council. Please describe the relationship you expect to have with the city attorney, and what will you do if you don't agree with his legal counsel?
Well, Mr. Noriakis, that's a very good question. First of all, I am by far the least qualified to judge whether a legal opinion is correct or not. But the City Council and the City of Lincoln City has chosen to hire an in-house counsel. That's what the city pays the current city attorney to do. We need to depend on what his recommendations are. We can, as individuals, of course, we have the right to our own thoughts and to do our own research into things that we may not think something sounds quite right, but I don't see the place of the city councilors to get into a open warfare contest with the city attorney. Nobody wins in that case. We need to work with the city manager that the council hires. We need to work with the city attorney that the council hires. We may not always agree, but we need to be gentlemen enough or ladies enough to recognize that we have charged them with a responsibility primarily to keep the city of Lincoln City out of legal difficulty. I know a lot of cities that have paid out a lot of money, a lot of taxpayer money, because they haven't followed the recommendations of their city attorney. And it doesn't make whether it's a contract city attorney or a direct employee of the city. So I think irregardless of whether an individual person, whether I would agree all the time with the city attorney or not, we owe him that respect of his position that he has been hired to do, to at least listen to his counsel. And before we decide to bolt and go in an opposite direction, we need to think hard and long about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you please repeat the question?
City attorney is one of 3 employees that reports directly to the city council. Please describe the relationship you expect to have with the city attorney, and what will you do if you don't agree with his legal counsel?
I think would be 6 other people on the council that I could say, hey, I don't necessarily agree with this. And by using the other individuals, they could maybe help me understand why I don't agree or think that what the city attorney or city manager suggests is important. Dean may not know all the legal parts of it, but we all are different and all have different backgrounds. And if by using the rest of council to help me better understand, why wouldn't I? I don't believe the city attorney or city manager would steer us necessarily wrong on purpose at all, and would use their expertise to know that that's the best intent for the city or for the topic that we're discussing. So,
thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Norikis, I view the city attorney as any other staff person inside the city, and they're a resource. You're right. Council hires the city attorney, and so my relationship would be one to visit with the individual out of council meetings for more questioning. If there's something I don't understand, try to figure out the rationale behind the advice that the counselor is giving me on an issue, giving us as a city council. But at the end of the day, I think the public needs to understand that the attorney is taking direction from the council. He's not, in this case, off and doing things on their own. It's as directed by council, and they happen to be the point person on the legal issues. But there are times, even though I'm know nothing about the law or very little, that you still render an opinion and have that counterbalance with the attorney questioning as any logical person would of why, give me some background, what's the worst case that can happen, and he's, in this case, advising the risk level, and then council gets to decide how much risk you want to take.
Thank you.
I think it's me.
Is it you, Riley? Yeah.
Sure, why not?
All right. This is the last written. No, it isn't. Never mind.
Just kidding.
Riley, what are the qualities of an effective leader? And are they the same when there is more than one leader?
I would say the best qualities of being a leader is to listen and understand what those who you lead desire. If your goal is it's important that everyone works towards the goal, and an effective leader is able to help everyone go towards that goal. If there are more than one leader, each leader should look to the other one and see whose has better qualities to lead at different times, knowing that you're stronger at this point and the other person or people are stronger at this point, letting them take the opportunity to lead at that time. knowing when not to lead is important for a good leader.
Thank you.
Would you just get out of a philosophical class or something, a leadership? You know, it must be. So, Mr. Ward, the debate is often, are leaders born? Are they taught? Are they managed? And I don't have an answer to that. But in council's case, the leader starts off anyway with the title of mayor. And, I would view the mayor in a position to lead, because in this case they call the meetings and have the agenda, control the discussion, whether there is discussion or not having discussion, and involving everyone. I think for my own edification, in being a leader, and there's usually a lot of like 7 A-type personalities on city council, so everybody wants to be the leader. And in fact, they are, because they were elected by their wards as councilors. It's a form of leadership. So there's, sets up some struggle, and that's why you kind of decide that in this case, the mayor, is it. But that doesn't mean that the others sit idly by. In my case, I'm a firm believer of getting input, providing input, sharing that information, having discussions, just allowing everyone to make sure they have the amount of time to voice an opinion. And then I think ultimately it's your actions that show leadership. You can say all the things you want. At the end of the day, how you act is the real indicator of your leadership and what you stand for. So, have fun.
Yes, Mr. Ward. I think in any organization or in any city, in this particular case, the city council, there is one elected leader that is in charge of conducting the meeting. But the other 6 councilors that sit on the council, as Dick said, they represent their ward. It's their job to, I think a good leader knows his constituents, be they citizens of a ward or be they members of his business organization, gathers the input, but then the buck has to stop someplace. And in this particular case, it stops with the city councilors. They have to know how to lead, to be forceful enough to lead, to make their wishes known. Like we said earlier, the vote may not go their way, but they still have to be a part of a team. And it's just no different than a management team of a corporation. I had the chance, just as a personal note, to spend part of this week with my brother, who works for Boeing, has been in Seattle with Boeing for 33 years. He's the senior engineer in the military division. Boeing made the decision to transfer the entire workforce of that division to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. They gave the individuals, engineers in that group, the choice to either transfer, take retirement, take early retirement, or leave the employment of Boeing. Bill did his best to gather his group around him because he's in charge of that entire group. Out of 126, only 6 transferred. Now, he's in the process of rebuilding that entire organization. Boeing likes to hire younger people, so he's working with, he being of the baby boomer generation, the next generation are Generation X, 18 to 34-year-olds, and the next generation are the millennials. He has discovered and has gone back to school to take courses, and he has a doctorate. That Generation Xers and Millennials don't like each other, they don't communicate with each other, and they don't want to communicate with each other. So he's the middleman, but he's the leader, and it's just like the city. You've got people that don't like each other in the citizenry, they don't want to work with each other, but as city councilors, it's your job to bring them together and make them work together. Thank you.
We're reaching the end here. Will be no talent portion.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for your interest in serving this community. Each candidate will now have a few minutes for closing statements and to ask any questions you may have for us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the time, and again, thank my other applicants for this position for stepping forward, Dean and Riley. It's nice to see all three of us put forth an application for this spot. Again, I think the only thing I can say is that I'm a known entity to you, which certainly helps if in case you're looking to fill the seat quickly and ramp it up. You know, there's work to do with the city. I know the process. You've seen my style of work ethic and how I operate in a public forum. So there's no mystery there. I certainly have the background and understanding of city government. And for me, there's a couple of things that I'd like to, pursue and get done. As I indicated earlier, certainly the villages and the workforce housing thing needs to move along. And the other being the financial stability of the city would be my two primary wish lists and taking point on. Thank you.
Oh, Riley?
Either way, I thank you for the opportunity. It's been a real pleasure and a unique experience. It's something that I wish to do. I feel that if I'm on city council, it would be a nice representation of the population of the city, having someone under the age of 35 that has the interest and desire and want to do it. It's true. You can laugh, but it's true. I'm here. I've been doing it. I started with the VCC, and I'm going to keep going. I care about it. I want to care about it. I want to learn. And you've seen how I've been in the Budget Committee and the Planning Commission. I take it serious. I do it with my heart, and it matters. So, though I couldn't hit the ground running, but I'll try. So, I just thank the opportunity for the opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, to be 35 instead of 74. I, too, want to thank both Dick and Riley for their willingness to step forward. It's been a little bit of a turmoil in Lincoln City, but we will get past it. There's still a lot of work to do and great things to be accomplished in the city. I have not had experience serving on a city council or a planning commission. I have dealt with a number of councils and planning commissions over the years in a number of different states. So I do know something about how a city operates. In the case of Lincoln City, I would say probably one of my strongest suits is I've been here, I've got an outgoing personality, I do know a lot of people, I'm in a number of organizations, and having had the privilege of working for the Urban Renewal Agency for 4.5 years, I do have a pretty good understanding of how the city operates. So thank you again for this opportunity, and thank to my fellow applicants.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, all three of you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chandler, where we?
At this point, it's open for you to discuss if you'd like, or you can move right to casting ballots, or you can do that after a discussion. When you're finished with the casting your ballots, Mrs. Steer will pick those up and calculate or tabulate them and then give you the results.
Do we have something to write on, or are we just going to tear off a piece here?
Give us about
Microphone?
Give us about 2 minutes to read over our notes.
But again, the question was...
Ballots.
Yes, ballots, that's what I'm after.
Are you ready for these now?
We can pass them out.
I have a comment to make. One thing is that, at least talking casually with a couple of other counselors, we were committed to not being prejudiced when we came and sat down. Everyone had exactly the same shot, and I held that completely throughout the processes. I know at least two others have. So you didn't come into a fixed game.
saving those.
I'm not saying. No.
A good question. Is there any requirement to hang on to these questionnaires?
Yes. If in fact you've taken notes that are public record, and you probably want to give them to the city recorder.
I will mention that you all failed the bringing cookies to the council requirement. Doing here.
the last one. Are you guys all voted in?
Yes.
Oh, I'm the last one. God, I'm sorry.
Okay. We have 3 votes, Dick Anderson, 1 vote Riley Hoagland, and 1 vote Dean Coppage.
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, you would need at this point a motion and then second and a vote confirming the results of the voting and appointing Mr. Anderson to the City Council to fill the remainder of Jim Davis's or of the vacant term of office.
Effective
upon swearing in. We had looked at doing that tonight, but as I understand in the past, when those opportunities happen, there are family and others that would like to attend, so we would put it on the agenda for your next meeting to do the official swearing in.
Which would be?
You have actually, well, you have a work meeting that's scheduled for the 19th. Of course, you would be invited to attend that. There will be no voting at that meeting, but your next regular scheduled City Council meeting is the 26th.
Mr. Chandler, would it be possible to swear in the appointee at the work session?
We could advertise it that way, yes, and just do that prior to
With the approval of the council.
And the approval of Mr. Anderson.
That's fine.
Fine with me.
Thank you.
Okay, so work session being?
Next Monday, the 19th.
The 19th, thank
I
you.
believe we would have to have a special meeting. The meeting is a workshop on Monday, correct?
Yeah, we'll figure out how to advertise it so we can make it happen.
Okay, sounds good. Congratulations again. Thank you all for applying, and thank you for putting in the time and effort tonight. It's much appreciated.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move that we appoint Dick Anderson to fill the vacancy created by Jim Davis's leaving.
Second.
I have a motion to second. Any discussion? I guess we need a roll call. No? Just all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Okay. It?
You all.
All right. Now we are to, good grief, I've lost everything here. Oh, was that it for you, Mr. Chandler?
Done.
All right. Marijuana tax.
Did you need a second motion, Mr. Chandler?
Oh, yeah, you would do to schedule it on the meeting.
No, I thought I heard you asking for 2 motions.
Well, was confirming the vote.
That's all?
The council's.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Attorney, marijuana tax.
Okay, on the agenda, you have essentially not a proposed ordinance, just a question from me. There was some legislation passed in 2015 regarding authorization to place a 3% tax on the ballot next November. It's the local option recreational marijuana tax. So my question of you is whether or not to have me to draft that ordinance and prepare it for future placement on the ballot. As part of that, we would ask for amendment or modification or clarification or possibly even repeal of the existing ordinance 2014-27, and specifically in terms of recommendations, you may want to clarify that that ordinance is not applicable to interim sales of recreational marijuana from medical marijuana dispensaries. So be looking for direction in the form of a motion to bring back a tax to be placed on the ballot, 3% tax, and if you desire to bring back an amendment, modification to the existing ordinance to either suspend or simply clarify that the tax that is in ordinance 2014-27 is not applicable to medical or recreational sales from medical marijuana facilities.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If we suspend the ordinance and the laws somehow change in the future, then we can bring that back and amend it again as necessary?
Well, I would not recommend repealing it at this time, but I would recommend that you simply clarify that the ordinance was not intended to apply to interim sales of recreational marijuana from, the Oregon Health Authority licensed medical marijuana facilities, as opposed to the OLCC licensed facilities. So, yes, we will be able to, if we suspend or clarify in an amendment, we will be able to apply it later if you decide to do that. You can also repeal it later if you decide to do that.
I think that's a better way to go than just get rid of it.
Well, then we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we direct staff to prepare an ordinance for referral implementing the local option imposing a 3% tax. An amendment to the 10% tax in ordinance 2014-27 can be returned for future consideration by the council.
Second.
Just a quick clarification. We're preparing an ordinance for a ballot, correct?
Yes.
Yes. What you meant?
Well, there's actually two ordinances would be involved. One would be an amendment to the existing tax ordinance, and one would be a new tax to be placed on the ballot in accordance with 3400.
Okay, so the first motion made that first one clear, and then we do, okay. So we had a motion. Again? Any discussion? Councilor Walkie?
This motion is addressing both issues, correct?
It's not the ballot.
Well,
Mr. Norika?
Oh, it's the ballot. Huh?
Yeah, both.
Okay, I didn't hear ballot. That's why I was confused.
The word ballot was not in there. Perhaps, Mr. Appicello, you could help me out with a...
And I would suggest perhaps start with one motion. Simply direct staff to draft an ordinance implementing the local option tax identified in House Bill 3400, Section 34A. That is reference to the place it on the ballot in November.
All right.
So perhaps just that motion first.
So moved.
That's second.
Okay, what do we have to do with the motion in the second? I just want to make it clear. Do we have to do anything with that? Or that's an amendment to the motion?
No, I'll retract my initial motion.
There we go. Okay. So we have a motion.
Will you retract the second?
I do.
Councilor Sprague?
All right. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Ward.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Norikis.
Yes.
Sprague.
Yes.
And Walkie.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. And then the next.
And, Your Honor, the second motion would be to amend the code to modify or suspend the prior adopted marijuana tax as it relates to recreational sales from medical marijuana facilities.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Williams.
Yes.
Norikis.
Yes.
Sprague.
Yes.
Walkie.
Yes.
And Ward.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Actions, if any, concerning executive session items.
Your Honor, we had a number of items we discussed in executive session, and as you know, no action can be taken in executive session. If you wish to take action, this would be the time. One item we discussed was workforce housing land exchange. So if there is someone that desires to make a motion, the motion would be to advertise the land exchange and ask staff to develop recommendations and for council consideration and future decision.
So moved.
Seconded.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Norikis?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Walke?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And, Your Honor, I have two additional items that were discussed in executive session, and on these matters, I would recommend that the mayor not participate and not vote, as they would probably involve an actual conflict of interest.
All right, well, on the advice of council, I will recuse myself.
So with regard to the item on executive session, which had to do with confidential transferred records, I would, if you wish to take action, I would recommend that you notify OGEC. The motion would be to notify OGEC that the City Council is willing to release transferred records, the transferred record restriction in 192.502 sub 10 at such time as OGEC decides to proceed with the public process.
You looking for a motion?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Craig, you're going to take over?
Either one.
You need to.
Oh, that's right. We have a second, and who do you have down for the second? You. Oh, okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Norikis?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Walke? Yes. Ward?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the final item, also a matter in which the mayor is recommended to recuse himself for actual conflict of interest, would be looking for a motion to authorize release of, it's a public records request, and authorize release of the employment contract requested, attorney employment contract, but notify the requester that council is not willing to answer questions regarding records that are exempt from disclosure under public records law. And that would, again, has to do with the investigation of Mayor Williams.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Walke?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Norikis?
Yes.
And Sprague?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. All done?
There was one other item that we discussed in executive session.
On the executive session agenda, we have Chamber of Commerce right away.
Right.
And we did handle the marijuana tax issue, which was also discussed. Did I miss one?
We talked about a vacation hearing, right-of-way vacation, and
Chamber of Commerce, the question, yes, if in fact you, I apologize, if in fact you wish to take action regarding city initiation of vacation of right-of-way on which the chamber property is located, this would be the appropriate time to make that motion.
Done.
I move that we explore the right-of-way vacation issue.
And how would you want that explored? You want to direct someone to do something?
We talked about alternatives.
If I could frame it, perhaps direct a motion to direct staff to return with review of the right-of-way in question and propose alternatives for partial right-of-way vacation.
Thank you. So moved.
I'd second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I guess I would just like a definition of vacation so people who are listening will understand what we're talking about.
You pack your bags, you go to Hawaii. It would be, vacation is a process under state statutes where we advertise and basically take property which is burdened with a right-of-way easement and remove the burden that is in the favor of the public. So you can do that for all of a right-of-way or a portion of the right-of-way. So the motion is basically to have us explore partial vacation of right-of-way.
Okay, any further discussion? Favored? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
All right, other city manager, city attorney reports? Nothing. Oh, we're rolling towards the end here, folks. Reports from standing committees? None, thank you. Additional comments from citizens present on non-agenda items?
Members of the council, Mayor Jim Hoover, 3150 East Devils Lake Road. Let's see if I can pick up where I left off. I had last said that this was a witch hunt. So I want to describe the process that Mr. Pope, the attorney that you've hired, described to me was going to go on with my public testimony. Because I asked him the question specifically. I said, are you recording all the public testimony that you're giving? Which he said, no. He said, I'm only recording those that people are recording. So I said, you know, if you're not recording it, how do I know my answers are going to be summarized correctly? Because he said he was going to summarize the answers of all the people he was interviewing and then give a report to the city council, to which I said, will the report to the city council be a public report or will it be a private report? Because if you're not recording it and you're going to summarize it and then you're going to present that summary to a city council who's looking for something that the mayor did wrong, how will I know that my answers or the answers of anybody else that you've interviewed who has consented to be interviewed by you won't be taken out of context, characterized wrong, or just flat out stated wrong? And he wasn't able to answer that. So now we have a process where you've initiated an investigation with a contract the public doesn't know about, with an expenditure of money we don't know how much you've spent, or how long this is going to go on, or what is you going to investigate, with an investigator who is asking questions about people's private lives, not the mayor's, what associations, what groups they're involved in. He's going to summarize that. He's going to present to the city council as a document you're going to use to determine whether or not the mayor's done something wrong, but there's no way for me or anybody else to verify if what we've said has been characterized correctly. And if that just doesn't smack that it's a real problem possibly for the process, I don't know what it is. Now, it was really interesting. I sat here and watched tonight as you chose a city councilor. I remember 2 meetings ago, we talked about the cost of an election, and I've been recently told that that cost, according to the county recorder, would be about $2,500 and would be done within 2 months. So for $2,500 in 2 months, we circumvented the voters of Lincoln City and instead had several city councilors appoint a replacement for over a 2-year term. And we still don't know how much you're spending on this witch hunt or how long it is. But I know the investigator was in town for at least 6 hours last Saturday. He drove from Eugene, so I'm assuming we have transportation costs one way. I know that was at least the second weekend because I've talked to a couple people that were interviewed or asked to be interviewed, and so I'm assuming he's coming back for another one because he said he wasn't done with his interviews. So I'm guessing you spent a whole lot more than $2,500 on this investigation. I'm guessing it's going to top, by the time you get your city attorney's time into it and everything else, a whole lot more than that. And yet we didn't spend $2,500 and wait 2 months to elect somebody to a position so that the voters could be representative instead of people on a city council, most of whom I think ran unopposed. This is just really a problem for me. And if the citizens of Lincoln City don't see it's a problem, then I guess that's what it is. But I think that a majority of them are beginning to see really clearly that the only thing one person on the city council who's being investigated can possibly do is speak for the people who elected him, and as a result of speaking for the people who elected him, who might be represented by one person against the majority on the council who feel otherwise, it looks like he's being targeted. And you guys may not like to hear that, and you guys may choose not to listen to me, and you may choose not to listen to the other people on the city council, but it doesn't change the fact of what's going on with this investigation and the road we're going down and how it is. So I don't wish that you would be up at night thinking about this, but if you are, I hope that it speaks to your heart and you say, what's the right thing would do? Yeah, I was raised with a belief that you do unto others, you would have them do unto you. And I would ask how any one of you would feel if you were in a position where 5 or 6 people on the council were looking for something that you might have done wrong as a private citizen willing to run on a board, and how much you would like them to spend to try to find something in your life that you might be held accountable for. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else?
Council and Mayor, I'm Debbie Williams, and I just want to say, although this has been extremely uncomfortable to live through, that my husband and I are praying for each one of you individually. We're praying for this city. We only want the best for this city, and as far as it is up to us, I would like to have peace with all men. No matter what happens with investigations or whatever, we don't want to hold grudges. We don't want to have there to be divisiveness in the city. And I respect you for the time that you've put in. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would like to...
Need to have you state your name again, Pastor.
Okay, my name is Pastor Robert Harrison, and I'm addressing the whole council. I would like to say thank you to the mayor. And one of the questions that was asked as you were interviewing for a position is, what makes a leader? Well, I can answer that. What makes a leader is influence. If you're influencing people, you're a good leader. And from the moment I've met Don, he's influenced me. He is a man of faith, which probably doesn't go well with some people. But he is balanced from what I've seen. I think he has done a good job. And I think he needs to be given the chance to be the leader that I know I can recognize. Leadership is recognizable. And as far as the council goes, it says leaders recognize leaders. And I just want to say thank you, Don.
Thank you. Anyone else? We have hit the home stretch. Announcements or comments by City Council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I got a little thing here to read. 2 or 3 meetings ago, we had only 4 of us present. That was a quorum. And we voted a 2-2 tie on the subject of whether to extend an offer to the Elks Grand Lodge to purchase their building, which is adjacent to our community center. We've done nothing since then. Some months ago, we had sent them a letter expressing our interest in the building. Because of our lack of action, they've listed it for sale, but also indicated that they still wanted an offer from us. Since we now have an odd number present and could settle this matter tonight, I move we direct the city manager to extend an offer to purchase the Elks property. If there's a second on my motion, then I have some discussion items.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor. About 4 points. We need a sign visible from Highway 101 to increase the usage of our community center, which would help offset the subsidy that we now have. The logical site is on the corner of 22nd, northeast, or I guess it's actually southeast corner of Highway 101 and 22nd, but we can't place it there. The corner of the Elks property is the next best and probably only one where we can ever place a sign that will work. Sometime in the future, 10, 20, 30, 40 years hence, it's conceivable the center will need to expand. That will take away existing parking spaces because of the expansion, and there will probably be a requirement for us to add additional spaces. If we don't own the Elks property, we may never be able to expand the center. Also, it's been suggested that the Elks property could be a site for a senior center. If we don't buy the property now and it's purchased by the private sector, we probably never will have this opportunity in the future. So now is the time to act.
Jump on in. Jump on in.
Wait my turn. Well, I agree with you, Councilor Sprague, on that it would be nice to have the building, but it wouldn't be nice to pay too much for the building. And there's a lot of unknowns, and we don't know what a good offer is at this point. I don't believe that someone's going to come and snap it up. The costs of rehabilitation of that building are astounding, or at least certainly to really look hard at. And it doesn't have any parking. I just can't envision who would want to pay what the current asking price is. I think if you want to send them a letter that we're interested, that's fine. I would be behind that. But personally, for me, I wouldn't put up that kind of money for that. And I just think we need to slow down in order to figure out what that is really going to cost, and let them know we are interested, but certainly at a different price.
Your Honor, I just would point out that I know that we have talked about this property in executive session, and so to the extent you had confidential appraisal type information in executive session, I'm just reminding you not to.
Yes,
disclose.
I didn't say which was.
I'm just trying to be helpful.
Councilor Walke, you seem like you're on the edge of your seat to say something.
I just don't know if we're all on the same page about the amount of an offer.
Well, I'm not sure what I can and can't say here. My opinion on properties that we have varying opinions about, I agree that it would be a beneficial property for the city to have in its inventory, one shape, form, or another. However, as valued now, I don't see, as listed, I don't see that value. But I know that on other properties I've purchased, I've been able to say, well, here's what I think it's worth. Probably going to get rejected, but I would like a first right of refusal for any other offers that come our way. And I could live with that. Because I just, what the asking price is, I don't see it in conversion and not having a real idea of what to do with it. Again, we're just going to have another property sitting there, for 10 years before we decide what to do with it. Well, just my 2 cents on that.
I could amend my motion that it would include the first right of refusal of any other offers.
But then how do we determine the amount of the offer?
We had an appraisal.
I'm afraid that, when you have an executive session, you can decide if you want to disclose that amount. But if you disclose it, then the other side knows. And
I'm not disclosing an amount. I'm just saying that we don't necessarily have to offer the amount that the appraisal said.
Okay.
So that's probably as far as we can go with that.
Mr. Sprague, I appreciate the work you put into to making this motion. If I may, could I suggest that we come together at our next executive session and get clear on what it is that we are making an offer on? And we will have an opportunity again to vote on this motion of yours. But it seems to me this evening that we're really not clear on what it is that we're making an offer, the amount that we're offering to pay.
If I might ask a question. Within an executive session, we can't make a decision.
That's correct.
But can we make a decision on a price?
Well, you can discuss a price, you can come to consensus on a price, you can't make the
And
decision.
then we bring it here and then vote on that.
You make the motion. But I think what we're concerned about is that we don't discuss the confidential appraisal.
Right.
And in getting to where you guys agree on a price, we don't want to risk that coming out. We can have a special meeting next Monday because we're going to have a swearing-in ceremony anyway. We could have an executive session advertised in advance where you could talk about it.
That's acceptable.
I'm amenable.
Yeah, I am too. I'll withdraw my motion.
And then do we need a motion to bring it to that session?
Let's just, if someone, unanimous consent to have an executive session next week before your regular, or before the special meeting.
Need a motion for that?
Unanimous consent.
Let me add one thing to that, and that would also, not just the executive session, but that would be to add it to the special meeting, so you would have the swearing in of Mr. Anderson, plus this on an agenda, and then you would go into a work meeting.
And that's on the 19th?
This is the workshop concerning reduce.
Oh, Lord, I just committed to.
So,
that's a 3 o'clock meeting.
Oh, beautiful.
So
Say yes.
I believe the workshop is
I have down
from
for
3 to
3 o'clock.
5.
Yeah.
So we do need to come up with a time for the special meeting and the executive session, whether it's going to be before or after.
I think it should be after.
No, it needs to be before.
Before
You're
works for
swearing in
me.
Mr. Anderson, so that way he can participate as a full-fledged counselor in the meeting.
Works for me. I need that if possible.
2:45 executive session,
2:45?
3 o'clock.
Got enough time?
3 o'clock special meeting, and then
It should not, your special meeting shouldn't take more than 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes.
You mean for the swearing in?
Swearing in and deciding this issue should not take a long time.
So the executive session would be before that?
2:45, then we'll start the special meeting at 3, and then go right into the work meeting as soon as that's done.
If 15 minutes is adequate time on the issue we're going to talk about.
Is for me.
I'm pretty good with that. I think we can come to a general.
Okay. So 2:45 then on.
Okay, unanimous.
Mr. Chandler, will we be excluding the new member of the council from
the executive session? Oh, Mr. Apicella is going to have to help me on this, but I do believe you can invite people in, can you not?
you can invite someone into executive session, but they can't obviously participate. Well, you can't vote in executive session anyway, so.
Okay, good.
So
I'd move that we invite the new appointee to our next executive session with the consent of the council.
It'll be 2:45, Monday, October 19th.
You need a,
I'm good with
is that
that.
a motion?
No, just unanimous consent.
That's a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Did we do it? Beyond that? We are adjourned.